Starting now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the XBE Thrive series, the service line micro of training and development. Appreciate everyone taking some time this afternoon to spend with us. We are the Diversity Consortium. Our organization is a diverse supply chain advocacy group that works to make a measurable difference in the diversity landscape. Our hope is to provide service to corporations in the development and implementation of their supplier diversity programs and to work with disadvantaged business enterprises of all types. We call them XBEs to represent a diverse across all different sectors of disadvantaged business enterprises to develop, to gain capacity, and to grow their businesses. It is our hope to make a measurable difference and to help businesses grow. So thank you for spending the time today. Wanted to spend just a moment to introduce who we are at the Diversity Consortium. We are a federation of 25 consulting firms, all with a tenure of 10 years or more and providing services in this diversity space, cumulatively over 300 years of experience. And basically, we provide services and program development, strategy, and execution for corporates, and we provide development and capacity building for the XBE market. In that provision, both up and down market, we have over 500 service lines and thousands of clients referenceable. Hundreds of staff members cumulatively across our organizations with well over $1 billion of working capital to make available for XBE growth. So we are thrilled at the opportunity to be able to spend a little time with you today. We offer our services upmarket. There are 13 of those services that you see there in the lighter gray, and on the right-hand side are the down market XBE services. Today, we're going to be spending our time in training. So I hope you enjoy the content that we have here today. This XBE Thrive series is a monthly event, and what we're doing today is a micro, and that micro is represented by several of our partners who provide services to help fulfill that. We're going to be joined today by Randall Dobbins from Dobbins International. These are some other logos of the organizations within the Diversity Consortium that have some level of training content within their service lines and what we provide to our clients within the Diversity Consortium. Like I said, today is part of the XBE Training and Development Service Line Micro. The topic of our conversation today is understanding the problem and developing this success skills for disadvantaged suppliers. A little bit of housekeeping for today is we have Teams is our platform in which we're going to be conducting this webinar. So as you'll notice on your control dashboard at the top, all attendees will be able to see. You'll be able to you mute yourself. You'll be able to ask questions along the way. There are going to be some surveys that we're going to be taking with regards to some of the content questions and a little bit about the audience. So if you'll just type your answer into the question bar, and it'll get tabulated, and the producer will provide us with a bit of results. Certainly can control your volume and anything. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns or anything that you'd like to get more information, just type it into the question bar there, and it'll get raised. If we don't get a chance to get to all the questions today based on the attendees for the day, we would let you know that we're going to provide answers to every question. And we'll send it to everybody who participated or anybody who registered that wasn't able to attend. So to begin our session, what we'd like to do is just get a handle on the categories, a little bit about our audience. If you are a disadvantaged business, we'd be interested in what makes you disadvantaged, whether you're a veteran, woman, a minority. If you could just type that into your question bar or your chat bar. We'll tabulate that and we'll let you know a little bit in the notes from this session as we distribute out the recorded version of this, what the audience was made up of. So thank you for doing that. I'm going to introduce a little bit about Randall Dobbins and his organization of Diversity Works. They have been around for a number of years, and they provide corporate level training to XBEs. Randall himself is a corporate guy from a corporate training organization, and is bringing that experience and training and providing that to help grow businesses and help to impact communities locally. His organization is based out of Austin, Texas, and he has trained thousands of organizations. So I think you're going to enjoy the time with Randall. So at that, Randall, I'm going to introduce you, and if you can kind of take over and tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the agenda.
Jim, thanks so much. And everyone, I'm glad you're here. This session is for you. We appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more, and we definitely want to encourage your engagement. We are here to address as many questions as possible and follow up with you. But thank you. With that, let me just start off with a little short story. I remember having worked for the largest company in the world. 9 years in, I walk into my boss's office and I said, you know what? I finally figured out how this company makes money. Now, you would think, those of you that own businesses, imagine an employee coming to you and saying, after 9 years, they finally figured out how you make money. It's like, well, how did you not know that day one? And really and truly, what I was really conveying to my boss at the time was I understood the systems and processes underneath the company that allowed it to make money for the most part in its sleep. And so the responsibility of management and ownership was really and truly to address issues based on exception, that they had done such a phenomenal job of putting systems and processes in place that a lot of the requirements of the business ran automated, and they had notifications that allowed them to understand when something wasn't working the way that it was supposed to, so that they could then jump in and make whatever adjustments and other kinds of things that were required. And so that then began to set the stage for a whole host of my really and truly understanding how this entire thing called corporate contracting works. What I learned in that, I was able to then move on into another role where I was selling for another company, back into supply chain, understanding what was going on, and a whole host of other different roles, including a role in supplier diversity. And what I can tell you is probably back 50 some odd years ago, 70% of the reason why XBEs weren't getting contracts is because you were an XBE. In 2021, probably 30% of the reason why you're not getting contracts is because you're an XBE. So we're going to talk more about that in this conversation. Specifically, what we're going to cover is, why do minority-owned businesses or XBEs struggle to land corporate contracts? We're going to walk through an overview of the supply chain because a good number of us don't really understand it. We're going to talk about the supplier selection process and what you can do to advantage yourself there. We're going to address the 3 critical hurdles you must overcome to be successful or more successful in this space. And of course, we'll hear from some experts on what steps are being taken to ensure a level playing field. So let's just get straight to it. Why do XBEs struggle with corporate contracts? I can tell you this from having done field procurement. I can tell you this from having done head office procurement. I can tell you this from doing global procurement, doing local procurement. It boils down to, do I believe that your company is going to perform against the contract? I either do or I don't. As a person that picked suppliers to come in and do business for my company, as a buyer, as a supplier diversity professional, it boiled down to, do I really believe you can perform? Now, that means, do I believe that you have the right size to handle the contract? Do I believe you can scale, not for just contract 1, for contracts 2, 3, and 4? Scope, do I believe you offer the services the way I need to buy them, or do I believe that you have one piece, but then I got to find the rest from somebody else, as opposed to your larger competitor having everything under one umbrella? In some cases, is there bias? And the bias can be a whole host of things. Bias can be, we're going to talk a little bit more about bias, but there is oftentimes a bias at play that we have to understand how to overcome. And then, of course, what I led with, what is the perceived risk that I, as the buyer, believe that working with your company potentially introduces to my supply chain or to my business? You then match that with, because what we just shared with you a moment ago was, what are some of the issues that a buyer or supplier diversity professional has looking at your business? Now, let's flip this around and talk about what's going on in their world. Do they really and truly have corporate commitment to actually contract with XBEs? Is the company, what we say, serious about this, or is this the flavor or initiative of the day? Where are the authority levels? Does somebody actually have the ability to contract and spend the money to do a deal with you? Specifically, has financial responsibility been taken out of the location that you're talking with, so that now there are just way too many sign-offs in order to bring a new supplier in? Are there competing objectives? Is the company coming back, and this gets to corporate commitment, saying, well, we want to bring in more XBEs, but then what they're doing is engaging into a process called vendor consolidation, where you take 20 or 30 vendors that were doing something and then bringing it down to 1 or 2 or 3 and concentrating your spend so that you can have a leveraged buy. Do you have a company that has what we call a risk-averse environment, which is they tell you that they want to engage in maverick behavior, they want everybody in the company to be entrepreneurial, but at the end of the day, they go back to what they've always done, because there's no real risk in doing what you've already done. And then somebody will sell why it was they didn't make performance goals and whatnot. Those of us that are XBEs, we see this time in and time again, and we know how frustrating this can be. And then, of course, you get to the incumbency issue, where it just feels like the people that have always been there, the good old boy, folks that you go to church with, folks that you see at the club, folks that the country club, folks that they go to ball games with, the folks that seem to be buying the business, the good old boy network, that somehow or another, when it comes down to it, the folks that have been there for a while are the ones that are always going to get the contract. So that is one of the issues that supplier diversity professionals have had to deal with. And of course, one of the competing issues that you have when you're trying to be a change maker in this environment is you've got companies that are increasingly becoming global, yet they feel like they have to have some type of responsibility to that local community, whether it's in Texas or California or South Carolina or Michigan or Maine or Florida, whatever it may be. But at the same time, they're trying to figure out how to do business in China and Indonesia and South Korea and India and all these other places. So how does that even play out? So you can begin to see that there's a tremendous amount of coordination that has to go on behind the scenes in order to make this work. Now, take everything that we just said. All right, we in the last 2 slides, we talked about number 1, what are some of the built-in issues around why you might not be getting contracts? Number 2, what are some of the challenges that someone that's advocating for you might be coming across? Let's put this in the broader context of the business of the Fortune 1000, which interestingly enough is the same as your business. All right. One of the best things that someone ever told me was think of a Fortune 1000 as a small business that nothing more than a small business that did a lot of things right. A lot of their businesses started out exactly where your business is right now. Okay. And so let's look at this list right here. We're coming out of a pandemic. Well, ask yourself, what has the pandemic meant to your supply chain? Now multiply that, 100, 1000x to a Fortune 1000 company. Specifically, a lot of them had set up global supply chains, but you can see whatever country you're in where right now people are having to rethink whether or not a global supply chain makes sense. Can you be dependent upon the United States or China for national security issues like PPE, respirators, a whole host of things? Might you need to have inventory or stock locally that you didn't used to have because you were confident that you could manage a 3, 5, 14, 90-day window in order for your supply chain to be replenished? Now you might say, I need safety stock. You might say, actually, not only do I need safety stock, I need to make sure that those manufacturing facilities are in my country. So when you start thinking about the big guys trying to look at what now is going to be the impact of their supply base in order to comply with something like that, we're seeing a huge amount of disruption and rethinking of what the supply base needs to look like. Clearly, we came off last year with Black Lives Matter, George Floyd. We have the issue right now with Asian bias. We've out the Me Too movement and a whole host of things, which just crystallized the need for inclusion and social justice. I mean, you pick an issue, and I'm not trying to leave anyone out, whether you're Hispanic or Indian or veteran or any of the other XBEs, but you look at all of this, and we now see that there's a more concerted effort by the Fortune 1000 to make sure that they're doing more than just talking about this, that they are approaching this in a way where they're saying, if anybody actually sits back and seriously assesses whether or not we do this, we can get past the eye test and we can get past the smell test. And I'll tell you, one of the most respectable things that I heard was a friend of mine that's an executive in a large telecom company said that one of the issues they've had before they went public with some of their efforts, which they're doing a number of things publicly, they just didn't announce them, was that they said they looked at their management team and they didn't feel like their management team was reflective of what they wanted to achieve with social justice, diversity, and inclusion. So they took on an initiative internally to start improving their own performance so that they were even credible to start saying about what should happen in the marketplace. Now, what I really want you to take away from this social justice, diversity, and inclusion issue is there is a concerted effort. We'll see how long it lasts. We're here to take advantage of it, and that's what the DC and working with XBEs and all of us on this call are looking to do, is hold their feet to the fire such that their employee base and their supplier base looks like their customer base. If 50% of your women, 50% of your customers definitionally are women, and then you throw in XBEs, then you would say that XBE should account for roughly 60 to 65% of their supplier base. It should represent 65% of their employee base, and it should represent about 65% of their supplier base. All right. And so when you start seeing goals of XBE spend of 5 and 10% per year, you can begin to see how much of a gap that needs to be filled. And oh, by the way, the business case for XBE inclusion is innovation, what your business offers to the large companies, to the Fortune 1000, is because you've had to figure out how to do more with less. That necessity is the mother of invention. That invention, that genius, that expertise that you know that you do just to make your business successful, and you know it adds value to your customers. That's what they sorely need or desperately lacking. And remember, I told you the story about all these systems and processes that they create to make money. Those things eventually break under the weight of themselves, and the expertise that you offer is what they are looking for. So to wrap up this slide, you start seeing not only diversity and inclusion, not only the pandemic, but they're trying to figure out technology solutions. They have competition with the industry being consolidated. They've got a regulatory environment issue that they have to deal with both domestically and globally. And while all of this is going on, they're still trying to pick suppliers. Now, let's get to the heart of the matter. This is what you didn't learn in kindergarten. Mama didn't teach you, and you might not have learned in an executive education course, all right, an executive MBA. But this is where you need to make sure you develop skills. This is a skills matters industry. The question is, what are you developing skills for? What do you need training on? How do you get there? So we're going to walk through these. We've got 2 slides on this. You can reach out to us for more information on these if you want to get at it a bit more. But just I kind of just want to walk you through this, because once you understand this, once you understand the strategy behind each one of these things we're going to talk about, you then should have some clarity around what additional training that you need to get to make sure that your business is properly set up to go after the right book of business. That's really and truly what you're going to take away from this is, am I chasing the right book of business, and is my business set up to be successful getting there? And what's my gap, and what additional training or skills am I going to need in order to compete against my bigger competitors? So supply chain versus purchasing versus procurement. We're basically talking about an evolution going on there where supply chain is cradle to grave, everything end to end. Purchasing is a business unit, which typically includes inventory, warehousing. It does include procurement, and it includes systems related to that. And then, of course, procurement is the act of actually bringing something in-house, issuing the purchase order and bringing it in. In the bottom left-hand corner, you see planned spend versus unplanned spend. Planned spend is if I look at the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years based on some manufacturing schedule, then I'm planning to spend this amount of money. Unplanned is there are things that come up in the business that I didn't anticipate, but I'm going to have to spend money on it. In the upper right-hand corner, let's go with direct spend versus indirect. Direct spend in general is everything that goes into cost of goods sold. What do I mean by that? Everything that goes into the assembly line at the car plant, everything that goes into the airplane in order to get the airplane out the factory before it takes that first flight. If you are a service-based shop, if you are a janitorial company or a consultant, the cost of the people that are actually delivering the work, that's direct spend. Indirect spend is everything else. Commodity segmentation in the bottom right-hand corner, what we're talking about there is that is a natural grouping of things that a company purchases that they consider a commodity, and they have a specific procurement strategy that goes with each commodity. You don't buy services the same way you buy products. You don't buy tires for the car the same way that you buy seats and paint for the car, or the same way that you would buy your SAP system or your back office accounting system or anything else. So let's go to the next slide. And we start getting into the evolution of procurement. Where this becomes important is when in the old days, we used to have something called 3 bids and a buy. And now we've gotten into something where procurement now is more aligned with the overall objectives of the company. Let's go back to the tire example. If you are Tesla or General Motors or Ford or Toyota, and somebody comes back and says they think they have an idea of how to shave 10 or 15 cents off the cost of a tire, do you think that that would actually show up in somebody's earnings per share? Would that show up in the bottom line? Would that show up in their profitability? Absolutely, it would. So when you start looking at the evolution of procurement, what we're talking about is how we've gone from 3 bids and a buy to something called a chief procurement officer, who may be reporting directly to the COO, the CEO, or somebody, because the type of performance that they can now get through some of these advances in supply chain technology, supply chain methodology, drives those kinds of results that go straight to the bottom line. If you go down to the left where it says head office versus field procurement, we're talking about the scope of responsibility that someone has. If you're in head office, you're typically buying for the entire company. If you're at the field, you're typically buying just for that location in general. Just beneath that, you see strategic procurement versus tactical procurement. And what we're talking about there is tactical being things that you just need to get done more often than not. Unplanned. Strategic being you're going to figure out where you can drive the most value in the shortest period of time to the bottom line. We're going to go up to the right-hand corner, continuous improvement focus. And this is one of the major areas where XBEs fall down, because we are really good at getting something in the door, but we're not necessarily great at showing how we can continue to reduce costs year over year on a 2, 3, 4, 5-year contract. And our bigger competitors are eating our lunch in this area because they understand this game. And then, of course, switching costs, where the big hurdle right there is, in order for us to get a shot, especially if we're going to replace an incumbent, we have to overcome a 3% switching cost, and then we have to offer a 3 to 4 to 5% additional value over that. So it means if we're serious about getting the award, we've got to offer somewhere between a 5 to 10% savings. So before we go to the next slide, because I know that was a quick recap, basically what I've shared with you is there's a ton of strategies behind each and every single thing you've just heard. And once again, you didn't learn it in kindergarten, and mama didn't teach you this, but this is what you need to know to be successful in this space, so that you can then set up your business appropriately. So now you take what we just talked about. Down the left-hand side, when we start talking about your opportunity matrix, we talked about planned and unplanned. A type of planned expenditure would be construction and major projects, mergers and acquisition. When you start talking about back office like IT, HR, legal, procurement, all those. You have another opportunity where we're talking about prime suppliers. In the automotive space, they'll talk to these as tier ones. In oil and gas, they'll call them primes. But these are some of their bigger suppliers, typically in the Fortune 1000 as well, that are selling to them, that are target customers for your business. Research and development. If we look at climate change, if you want to talk about initiatives, you look at the green environment or climate change. These are all examples of what we call spend types, and there's a whole host of them. Now, when you go back and you start asking yourself, well, okay, Randall, you in the previous slide, you talked to me about field versus corporate. You ask yourself, do you know where the expenditures are coming from? Who's driving the spend for this? Is it done at the corporate level, or is it done at the field level? And then when you think about what you are selling, does it go into their direct goods or indirect? And then as you go down the spend type, you can then begin to see where you might play in the corporate supply chain. If you look at this matrix right alone, you should see no less than 36 potential opportunity areas. Now, we don't have a lot of time to go into this, But what I want you to take away from that last slide is that it's also a stakeholder analysis, and you also should get a good sense of the dollar size of opportunities available as you work through that. Now, on the slide we're looking at right now, I need for you to really and truly understand that there's two different things that somebody that's trying to use your business is trying to address here. If you are not currently doing business with them, they've got to decide whether or not you're credible, whether you're capable, is there viable, are you viable within their company, and can they create an opportunity for you? Versus if you are currently in their organization, but you feel frustrated because you're not getting bigger opportunities, they're assessing what is your current level of capacity, how competent have you been, do they need to get you more skills or training, or what is the development opportunity, and how can you scale? Now, depending on who you talk with, they may not be aware that this is what's really going on, and it can be a frustrating conversation because you're not getting any place. They may not even understand this is what's going on. The fact that you understand it helps you to provide them the information they need to get you to the next step. And that's where some additional training comes in for you there. So what are the three things you must do to be successful? And in this case, we're going to talk to you briefly about best practices, and we'll take a couple of questions. The three things that you need to be able to do, and there's a lot underneath this, but conceptually, from a framework perspective, you get these three things right, you'll never look back. Number one, you need to address your capacity issue. Large companies will come back and tell you that the primary reason they don't use more XBEs is, and I'm going to quote them on this, they'll say, Randall, they don't know our business, they don't know our supply chain, and we don't believe that they can handle the business if we gave it, once we give it to them. Now, if you look back at the slides that we just looked at, you know, some of them don't really understand all of that because these organizations are disconnected, even though that's exactly what's going on behind the scenes. All right. And then they don't really have an idea of how to place the right supplier with the right opportunity. So what they said makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at the turnover and the new hires and everything else that's going on there. So for you, the issue becomes, in order for me to get past all of that noise and all of that fog, how do I take that and put that in three actions that gives me the best advantage? And the first one is address the capacity issue. You never want them to come back and say, I just don't believe that if I gave them the award, they can't handle it. So you got to address the capacity issue. And one of the best practices for that is this concept called strategic alliances. For those of you that are going out there doing it on your own, I want you to say, Randall told me this, and I don't know that I believed him or not, but he did tell me the fastest and most expensive way to go out of business is going it alone. Just FYI, you heard it here. All right. The most expensive and longest way to go out of business is to go it alone. So you need to figure out who you can strategically ally with that gives you a lot more capacity. And the second issue, give you the opportunity to drive more levers so that you can do year-over-year cost improvement. One of the things that I had to do as a buyer was I was given a $150 million portfolio, and the objective for me and the rest of the guys on the team was we had to figure out how to do a 7 to 10% cost savings year over year on a 5-year agreement. So let me be precise about that. In year one, we had to figure out how to take $15 million of cost out of a $150 million portfolio. And then we had to figure out, so what, that brought it down to 135. We had to figure out how to do an additional 10% on the second year and the third year, the fourth year, and the fifth year. We figured it out. All right. Good buyers will figure this out. Good XBEs, good suppliers will figure out how to work with us. Okay, so, you know, don't sleep. This is real. This is how it works. You have to know how to do this. You have to have the training. You have to have the skills to understand how this works. Now, there's a deeper conversation around what other business you should be chasing to deal with that offset in your revenue as well. What are the things that needs to be going on in your company to make sure that you're not losing margin while you're doing these things? And that too is doable. But the last thing is you need to have contract ready solutions. And with your contract ready solutions, that means that you are addressing innovation. You are anticipating, because you are a subject matter expert and a domain expert, you are anticipating what your customer is going to need before they need it, and you're going to be their trusted advisor and partner to bring that solution to them beforehand, in which case you now are delivering on the XBE promise of more innovation. So with that, Jim, I think we can tee up why corporates are focused on XBE success. We'll go back to where we started on that one, which is the innovation that you bring is good for their business. They are focused on your success because successful XBEs is more profitable for them and makes them better citizens in the community. It is the right thing to do because it's in the best interest of all their shareholders and all of their stakeholders.
So Randall, that very interesting. It is sophisticated, but yet pretty elegant and simple. Is that we need to understand our customers and we need to understand how to position ourselves for success. So what I'd like to do now, if you don't mind, thank you very much for your contribution there, Randall. But what I'd like to do now is go to the audience and ask a few questions. The producers have been tracking, and if you have a question that you haven't asked, please go to your chat bar and ask it, and it will get reviewed. And Christopher, bring it. Christopher, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, we do. First question is, where can I get started, or where can I go for training?
Fantastic question. So you have a number of different options available. Your local SBA has a ton of resources available to you. The advocacy agencies, whether it be the Women's Business Enterprise Networking Council, WBENC, or the National Minority Supplier Development Council, NMSDC. Some of your chambers of commerce, like the Hispanic Chamber or the Gay Lesbian Chamber, or the Asian Chamber, some of your chambers of commerce. You can get some training at Tuck University or Kellogg, or actually Arizona State University. They actually have some classes, and some of those are specialized in supply chain. You clearly can reach out to the Diversity Consortium or to my company. You can catch us at businesspartnerblueprint.com. All of us are offer different things based on the needs that you may have, that either gets you into this game or has you performing at a much higher level at this game.
Randall, I've noticed as I've gotten more familiar with the diversity market, there are a ton of things available as resources. The small business development centers from the SBA, everything they do is free. There are many service providers that do things at cost and at no cost. So just what I've noticed is you just got to go start to hunt and figure out what's the best solution for you. So Christopher, any other questions?
Yeah, second question is, I've gone through the school of hard knocks and rarely found value in classroom training. What makes this different?
Yes. The school of hard knocks. I've heard that a lot, and for those of you that said that everything I really needed to know I learned when I got out there and just did it, I applaud you. More power to you. I don't know that, I'm going to ask you to put a dollar figure on that, but I'm sure that education wasn't free. And I'm also pretty sure that you have a lot of advice that you can share with folks so that they don't have the same hard knocks that you've gone through. What I would share with you is that for a lot of us, the type of training and programs that we're talking about that are available to you right now haven't always been available to you. One of the primary reasons is that this new study of supply chain management, it really and truly is a new field. It's a growing field. We are learning more and more about it every day. Purchasing and procurement used to be a lot simpler in the old days, but now it's become a lot more sophisticated. And then you throw in things like Lean Six Sigma in the old days when you had Kanban, and you start throwing in quality. And now, those of us, even as consumers, you think about everything that we've talked about, but recognizing that while corporations are dealing with pandemics and blockchain and new technologies, 5G, and dealing with social justice and dealing with what competitors are doing, cloud computing and the Internet of Things, we still expect that, like on this call, that our internet works. All right, we still expect that it needs to have a 99.9% operating level. We expect that when we turn on our TVs, we expect that when we go to the grocery store, that whatever it is that we're consuming, it works the way it's supposed to. So in the mix of doing everything else that they do, they can't get away from performing at a high level. This is not an experiment, all right? And so um, you may have done things through the school of hard knocks, through trial and error, but the game is changing, and there is training that you can get, and it's applied training. It's not theoretical. This is the kind of training that we're talking about right now. This is how this works. This is how this works. What's left for you is how do you adapt it to your specific company, your culture, and your customers. This isn't the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s where you just kind of have to know this by rote, not knowing whether or not you'll ever need it. This is practical. This is what you don't know that's costing you money. And so there is an opportunity for you to actually do something fundamentally different than you may have done before. For those of you that definitely see the value in up-leveling your skills, then once again, to you as well, there are resources, as Jim mentioned a moment ago, a number of them for free available to you. You do not have to go it alone. You do not have to go through the school of hard knocks unless you just want to. And you can actually drive a lot more performance for your business.
Randall, I know that I've spent a lot of time trying to parent my kids, and it is speed to value, my friend. So the school of hard knocks often can take a while, and it's a great lesson to be learned, but sometimes it's a little faster and a little easier. So thank you, Christopher. Do we have time for another question?
Yeah, time for one more. Last question we'll get to is, how do you determine which areas I might need training?
So we actually have an assessment tool that allows you to zero in on that relative to your industry and your target customers. That's a deeper level conversation. But there are some tools out there to help you identify the gaps in your business and to help you prioritize which of those gaps, if you close immediately, will drive more revenue to your business. Jim, you want to add anything to that?
Oh, and I think I've experienced that assessment tool, Randall, and it is very effective. In relative short time, you can understand exactly where your strong and your weak points are, and that allows you to be able to focus on the areas that impact your business most. So I applaud you guys for that tool. It's really quite amazing having had a chance to kind of dive in and see it, it really does allow you to focus your attention on what's most needed for you. So Randall, I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank you for your experience and imparting some wisdom upon us. You gave us a lot to think about. So thank you very much for your time today. I want to just close out today with just reminding you guys of the XBE Thrive series. This call series happens once a month. But last month, I believe it was the state of supplier diversity, and the next call will happen on the 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. What's it to be an XBE and the importance of certification? So look forward to having you there. You can find these Thrive calls and all of the micros like we had today, which are kind of deeper dives into specific subject matters, on the website for the Diversity Consortium. thediversityconsortium.com. Go on into the events page and register yourself to be there. There are a variety of different topics that'll be held. We appreciate everyone's time today. If you have any questions, again, here is contact information for the Diversity Consortium, and please feel free to give us a call and ask any question. Randall and audience, thank you guys for your time today. Thank you very much.